I think the other big dynamic in our industry is, and again this has a implication I think for the kind of people that we attract. So you've got societies like here, most of the Western world, extremely mature in terms of the availability of technology, the use of digital media platforms, and the prevalence of social media, and therefore the way we market our brands to people is, just the availability of data and all these platforms allows us to come up with a fairly sophisticated approach. And then you contrast it with a lot of the emerging countries, so China, Vietnam, Indonesia, China, for example. So you deal with totally different extremes. So it's the world's second biggest economy, right? But we must not forget that at the same time, its per capita income is still about $5,400 a year, which really keeps it amongst the low-income countries of the world from an individual consumer point of view. There's large parts of the country still live in small towns and in sort of rural areas and aspire to a different lifestyle, and for them connectedness and being part of a social media network is probably going to come at a subsequent generation, and we still, when we market our brands to them, the challenges are very, very different. Yeah. But at the same time, in the same country, in the same society, you have extremely rich people, because the wealth has percolated to a certain set of people there, and the consumers tend to behave very much like they would here, and they have enormous purchasing power. And so when you're marketing brands in a country like that, you have to have talent which can, you were talking about multitasking, actually be able to deal with complexity like that. So on the one hand, you're out there in villages activating your brand and painting water buffaloes, and at the other extreme, you are running campaigns and tracking what people are saying through social media, right? So and you've got to have people who can deal with such broad sort of span of complexities.
And hiring people who have expertise or interest indeed in both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah. So how do you find it in your sector? Because I'm sure you plan for brands like Rolex in markets like China. So how do you go about doing that? And how do you deal with the talent issue there?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think, luxury brands, as we all know, they're really looking at that top 1, 2, 3% of high net worth individuals around the world, and they are increasingly in these markets which are not as advanced in terms of their media. And it's been a really interesting journey, actually. It's one you mentioned with Rolex we've been a part of, and really understanding the importance of a consistent brand across those different markets, and is a challenge. And I think that's where having global talent, having a talent that is connected, is so important for them, because they will look for consistency. You can't walk out of an airport in Paris and in Heathrow and then in Lagos or in Beijing and find a different brand. It needs to look and feel the same. So I think making sure that we have a team and a resource structure in place that enables us to deliver that for them is really important. And then the next thing is about, in terms of talent, finding the right balance of needing to have a true understanding on the ground of that society, the nuances of it, the different dynamics, the different cultural rights and wrongs. Perhaps some of the language that some luxury brands have used in the past doesn't really work in China because they don't have, legacy. And we all know a luxury brand, its DNA and why it is a luxury brand is because of its history and the stories it can tell of the past.
Absolutely.
And in markets such as China, you don't have those points of reference to bring up, to percolate for these individuals, because they weren't aware of them at the time. So how is a luxury brand still core to its DNA without being too how should we say, wishful and kind of retrospective looking. It's kind of
Yes.
finding this new, reinvigorated
Right.
brand looking to the future and just referencing the past. So it's a
Yeah.
really interesting. So I think finding the right talent to work on that business there, who is native, who
Mhm.
grew up in
Mhm.
China or India or you know, you mentioned Indonesia, which is where we're looking to next. Finding the locals there who also understand how to work with clients who are
Yeah.
based in
That's a
Switzerland or
challenge,
based in
isn't it?
Paris, who work in a particular way, who are very detailed, who are very precise, and it's not about speed, it's about making the right decisions, is a real quandary. It's
It
almost
is, it is.
pulling in two different directions.
Yeah, and at times like these, don't you feel glad that you work with a global network? I'm sure our
I do.
clients do at such times, right? Because you go to any of these countries, our industry has not been around long enough for us to have that breadth of talent within any individual market. And I guess that's where a global network really comes into play, because you complement different skills from different parts of the world and you just pull it together.
Absolutely.
And you can actually then get things done in all these countries where you may not have the appropriate talent to do the full thing.